o'clock. I'm going to call this meeting of the Planning Commission to order. I've established that we have a quorum present. All 7 members are here. From the agenda is the consent agenda. The commission may request for a consent agenda item to be moved to the regular agenda for presentation and public comment. Otherwise, the consent agenda will be considered in one vote. All items on the consent agenda have been recommended for approval by staff with no opposition received to date. Since some items on the consent agenda may require public hearing, the commission will accept public comment on any item on the consent agenda in one public hearing. So I'm going to open it up for public comment. The only item on the consent agenda is the minutes from the October 18th regular meeting.
And the special meeting minutes.
And the special meeting minutes. All right, I'm going to close public comment. Does anyone wish to make a motion?
Move to approve.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? 7-0. Regular agenda, subdivision plats. The Planning Commission has final authority for approval. Appeals may be directed to the City Council. Item A, Shops of Sherwood Subdivision, Section 1. A request for approval of a final plat of the Shops of Sherwood Subdivision, Section 1 being 5.606 acres located south of Sherwood Way and west of Salton Boulevard.
Kyle Warren, City of San Angelo, planner. This is the final plat, Shops of Sherwood Subdivision Section 1, and it's to the southwest of Sherwood Drive and Southland Boulevard. District 6, Billy DeWitt and Bonham neighborhood. On the left is the preliminary plat, and on the right is the final plat. Let's see. It's right here. This is the final plat, part of the preliminary. In conformity with the comprehensive plan and intent of purpose statements, the proposed final plat will be consistent with the commercial future land use in the city's comprehensive plan, 2009 strategic plan update, which are often single-use centers consisting of large retail and office clusters that seek visibility and convenient access offered by frontage onto major street networks. The proposed plat will be a large commercial development center zoned general commercial, which allows retail and office uses consistent with the above policy. And our recommendation is to approve the final plat of Shops of Sherwood Section 1. And the 4 conditions of approval are no delinquent taxes, drainage study, installation of sewer main, and water main and required service connections after submitting a plan for approval of that. Apologize. And these are 2 notes also to this final plat. The fire hydrant and fire department access may need to be provided depending on the proposed layout of the buildings and should be addressed as part of the site plan review process. And 2, prior to building permit issuance per subdivision ordinance, Chapter 9, land development subdivision ordinance, prepare and submit a sidewalk construction plan for approval illustrating a sidewalk to connect the business with businesses on adjacent lots. And that is it. Any questions?
All right. Thank you. Anyone have questions for the staff?
Can you go back to the diagram or the plat, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes,
I'm going
sir.
to open it up for public comment. If you wish to speak on this case, please state your name and single-member district or address.
Russell Gully, SKG Engineering, just here to ask your approval of this and happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gully. Anyone else wish to speak on this case? All right, I'm going to close public comment. Anyone wish to share their thoughts or make a motion?
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented by the staff. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 7-0. Item B, Southland Hills Edition, Section 23. Request for approval of a final plat for Southland Hills Edition, Section 23, being 5.041 acres located southeast of Valley View Boulevard and Stone Canyon Trail.
Good morning, Rafael Alvarado, Planner and Development Services. This is Salton Hills Edition, Section 23, on Maplewood Drive in Stone Canyon. The piece of land is 5.041 acres. It is in District 6, Larry Miller, in the Southland neighborhood. That is a satellite image of the property, of the final plat, should I say. These are the future land use and zoning maps. The vision plan, future land use map is on the left and the zoning districts is on the right. The final plat is located in a multifamily residential area. This is the final plat. And as a condition of approval for this plat and for the following one, Section 24 for Southland Hills, staff is requiring that the approved final plat last year in 2020 be recorded. You see, this is the older preliminary plat for which Salton Hills Edition Section 23 does not conform. The arrangement of lots in this configuration is a little more dense than this, which is why staff is requesting that this final plat, and I do apologize, this should be the final plat, but nonetheless, the dimensions are similar. This is an image of the site. And this is the analysis describing how the final plat does not generally conform to the preliminary plat from 1994, but how it does generally conform to the final plat from 2020. Staff recommends approval of Salton Hills Edition Section 23 with 7 conditions. The first of which being that the final plat recorded November 2020 be signed and recorded. I do apologize, that should say final plat. That is my error. And these are the rest of the conditions. Do you have any questions for staff?
So anyone have questions for the staff? I'm unclear on, you were talking about preliminary plats and recording one that had already been approved, and the change, is the only change in the density?
Yes, that's really it.
So where is I mean, that obviously looks substantially larger than the area that they're seeking to final plat here.
It's in the general dimensions of the lots, and that here the lot configurations is denser. The dimensions are shorter as compared to this, and it is part of staff's analysis to ensure that the final plat generally conforms with the legally recorded final plat. Now, this is my error on the semantics here. It says preliminary plat, but they should say final plat.
I'll touch here. Preliminary plat is correct. This is the plat that was approved, the preliminary plat in '94. Another one with more dense lot dimensions was approved in 2020. However, it has not been finalized by the applicant, has not been filed. So it conforms with the 2020 plat, preliminary plat, which is shown here in 2020. So one of the conditions is they basically get the signatures and file this, And the condition of approval for the final plat of the northern portion of this 20-something lots would be conditional upon finalizing this finalization of this preliminary plat, which was approved in 2020, if that makes sense. So we're
Okay,
basing it off
so
of
we have
94.
We have two preliminary plats, one submitted in 94 that was approved.
Correct.
One in 2020 that was
Correct.
approved. The difference between those is the 2020 plat has more dense
More dense
development,
and has not been finalized.
and has
all
not been recorded.
Correct. All we're missing is the signatures and the actual filing.
So you're asking the applicant to file the preliminary plat as a condition of the approval of the final plat for
Correct.
a small section of that area.
Correct.
Okay. Does everyone understand that? All right,
The more talking, the more confusing.
yeah.
It'll
Okay.
be the exact same condition of approval for the following plat.
Okay. Can you please go to the conditions? There were 7. So sign the preliminary plat, provide a copy of the tax certifications, drainage study, the fire department note. Yeah, go back, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Okay, it's got the street with no sidewalk.
Okay? Okay. I think I understand now what,
And I do believe
Looking
both final plats have the same conditions of approval.
okay?
So are you saying that on number 5, they can either or 40-foot local roadway or 36 with a sidewalk? Is that will they make that decision whether they want to go that way?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
Would planning support either plan?
Mr. Jones, did you want to come up? Oh, okay.
You mean the preliminary plat? Is that the question?
That's okay.
Okay.
I was going to say, I'd like to address that question in the public comment area, please. Any more questions for the staff? All right, thank you, Raphael. I'm going to open it up for public comment.
Good morning, Russell Gully with SKG Engineering. So the sidewalk and street width has been a typical, always condition. Proponents have the option, 40-foot street or 36-foot with sidewalk. So it's always been developer choice. Staff has always supported, I don't know that they had a choice either way, but it's always been developer driven on what they felt they wanted to do as part of theirs. So really there's I guess the confusion that I'm seeing and I'm having is really condition number 1. Must sign the Southland Hills Section 22 preliminary plat. The preliminary plat that goes back to November 2020 is not Section 22. It is only just a revised preliminary plat. And you do not record preliminary plats. Preliminary plats are only signed by the planning chairman and I guess and maybe the planning director. So they're not recorded. And this is similar. We did a Salton Hills Section 22 that was a similar street segment to what 23 is, to where we came in and just went in so far and stopped. And we had that discussion back then even about this preliminary plat that was brought forth in 2020, that at the time that it was owned, and it was kind of two parties coming together to have this larger area preliminary platted. The area of Southland Hills where you see the residential lots has since sold, and that, the seller and the buyer both requested of the city that application for that preliminary plat effectively be pulled, nullified, they're not going to move forward with it, kind of deal. So we had Section 22 approved by this planning commission based on the 1994 plat. And so we still believe today that the Section 23 and 24 plats do generally conform with that 1994 preliminary plat that is still valid, active, and matches the kind of the scope we're going. I believe for the years that we've always looked at this, generally conforming means we are still in the range, if you will, of type of lots that are generally there. And the street alignments and alley alignments are very close and match really closely to what the preliminary plats are. So we believe that we meet the definition of generally conforms, even though maybe we've made the lots a little bit smaller compared to what the 1994 preliminary plat is. So we would ask that really condition 1 be stricken, or, and I guess maybe we had a little miscommunication, misunderstanding about it. I could see that the requirement be there that we have to record Southland Hills Addition Section 22 final plat, the one that created the alley, and I don't know if we can get to the plats. Oh, too far.
Okay.
This one here, if we look, the northern alley to this is on the Section 22 plat. So we would need to record the Section 22 plat of Southland Hills before we record the Section 23 plat, because the lots in Section 23 rely on the alley of Section 22 that's been approved but not yet recorded. And that similar kind of condition would go forward on Section 24, that we would need to have Section 23 recorded because the lots on 24 rely on the alley of 23. And so that was kind of what our thinking was when they were talking about Southland Hills Section 22 preliminary plat, final plat, whatever the semantics were of that. So really, it's more about having Section 22 and or 23 recorded prior to the one plat that relies on those alleys. Hopefully I hadn't confused you too much.
No, not at all.
So basically, what you're saying, Russell, is we're going to throw out the 2020, we're going to use the 1994 plat, and then we've already got the Section 22 approved. It's already gone through planning. This is going to be the additional Section 23 that joins that, and that's what you're asking for?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask. What do we do with the 2020 plat? I mean, is there some action we can take to clean that up so there's not confusion in the future?
Well, is the intent to never file or we didn't say record on purpose because it doesn't get recorded in the county deed records, but it does get filed in our office.
Right.
Once it's finalized, that's the word we used. And the 2020 preliminary plat, you all approved, but it has never been finalized with all the signatures. They haven't submitted it, but it's still out there as an approved preliminary plat unless they formally withdraw it or you formally revoke it. Our concern is that the new one in 2020 looks like this. And so there's smaller lots, more density, which is different than the 94.
Yeah, so how many more lots are in this section from the 94?
Do you guys know?
The discrepancy is in the lot width.
Right.
Generally, they're about 55 feet wide. In the 1994 preliminary plat, they're about 71 feet.
Okay.
Since they're narrower, there's more lots. So do we know the difference in lots on 94 versus 2020?
No, it's also this one doesn't extend all the way to Valley View. it's only a portion of it.
I think in past, and I worked on the original submission, generally if it's a 1 or a 2 lot difference and the lot widths are very close, we've said that generally conforms. Russell's right in terms of if the streets are the same and the alleys are the same, that helps, but this would be a significant difference. You're getting an extra 20 feet for every lot. So once they continue to the east to College Hills, again, we don't have that calculation today, but that would still be a larger number of lots. And so it just made more sense to file the 2020 plat.
But you don't want to file the 2020.
Exact.
All of the parties.
Correct. And when we did 22, we kind of had this whole discussion, and we kind of, and I forwarded to Mr. James the emails, I guess, of the previous owner and the current owner requesting kind of withdrawal of the application for the 2020 preliminary plats. Things changed. We believed that we were generally conforming with these certainly 22, 23, and 24 with the 1994 preliminary plat. And so the Section 22 approval, I think we kind of talked around that, and it was approved at that point and considered to generally conform. So, if you look at them, if we go from 70-foot lots to 50-foot lots, you're going from, what would have taken up 50 lots, now we're getting 70 lots. So if we were at 100, now we're at 140. But and we're coming in later on with a zone change for a portion of this area to rezone from RM1 to RS3. So really, we're still, we believe, kind of generally conforming. And what does generally conform mean? Is it 1 or 2 lots, or is it a percent? Is it 90%, 80%, 70%? It's not established. So historically, through all the 20-plus years I've been doing this, so long as the streets and alleys line up, and we're still sticking within kind of the same realm of these are single-family residential lots, then that's generally conforming in our definition. So, but I believe there are some conditions to that to the 2020 preliminary plat that haven't been met, and I do not believe that the parties are going to be going forward to get those met. So we were just kind of pulling these pieces out because we believe they generally conform.
Okay, so I guess the first thing is the 2020 plat, and it sounds like no one wants to move forward with that plat. So we need the staff's recommendation on how to handle that. Do you want it withdrawn? Do you want us to withdraw it? How do we get rid of that plat?
I think since you all have approved it, you would have to take formal action to revoke it.
Okay.
And I don't know that you can do that today with it not being on the agenda.
And then the second question is, do we think that the 94 preliminary plat is generally the same or indicative of what the final plat has come in as?
I think
are we willing to
ultimately,
accept that? Or is the staff willing to accept that, right?
The question is, do we truly believe that these plats generally conform to the 94 preliminary plat that's official, kind of current? And we did for the Section 22 Southland Hills. I think staff even kind of agreed, or we all agreed, that it did generally conform for Section 22. So why are we now kind of having
So for
this for
Section 22, that's based on the 1994 plat?
Yes, ma'am.
Russell, is it?
And that was approved when?
Brandon, let me ask you, so if the 2020 plat, obviously, right, it's not actionable on the agenda, so can whomever makes a motion, since we're dealing with the same case, can killing the 2020 plat that was approved be just in the motion?
I think you need a finding that the 94 preliminary plat does generally conform with this new final plat that's been submitted. And in talking to John, I think this is right, but the 2020 the 2020 preliminary plat has parts that aren't in the 94. So,
But if they're not planning on moving forward with it.
So Russell, the question is, can you have two approved plats. So if we approve today, then we've got one that is approved for the same property, and in 2020, we have another one that's approved for the same property and are in conflict.
Correct. So normally the way it would happen is when the 2020 preliminary plat was approved, if they had finalized it, it would have replaced the 94 and the 94 would go away. So the problem right now is the 94 is the only one that's been finalized. So it's the currently controlling preliminary plat. But they have a 2020 preliminary plat that's been approved, just not yet finalized. So there's two questions, what to do with the preliminary plats. But the first question really is, do you believe that their final plat is conforming with the 94 preliminary plat? We have suggested that the change in lot sizes and therefore the change in number of lots and density is too much to be considered conforming with the 94 preliminary plat. And therefore, they need a new preliminary plat in place before you can approve that final plat. But the 2020 preliminary plat has been approved, so they could go ahead and file it. I'm guessing.
How long do they
Obviously, there are
have
reasons
to-
they don't want to do that.
What's the time frame to file without it going away? Isn't it like everything else, it's a year?
I believe under the recent changes we made to the ordinance, I believe it's 3 years.
Okay.
We made that change.
Or you all can revoke it at any time. So depending on your decision today, if you decide today that this final plat is consistent enough with the 94 preliminary plat, and they want the 2021 to go away, at your next meeting, we could bring the 2021 back for revocation. So you revoke it, it's done, and it's no longer out there hanging.
So even though you brought this up, it's in all of the wording and everything, comparing the 1994 and the 2020, why could we not be able to get rid of that today if we chose to do that? Because it's already brought up, it's in the minutes, everything else, or not in the minutes, it's in all of the wording that was discussed earlier.
I guess the other issue is, it sounds like we have multiple parties that are impacted by this preliminary plat. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Have the parties changed from 94 to 2020?
Yes, sir.
Have the parties changed from 2020 to today?
Yes.
So now we have folks that may have purchased land under the assumption that this 2020 plat was the basis by which they were going to develop, and we're potentially revoking it. That could create
The current
problems.
owner's here today. If you would like his opinion on that, he is very willing to let you.
The owner of the entirety of this 2020 preliminary plat.
Well, there's two different, there's multiple owners, but the owner that is tied to the section 23 and 24, he is ultimately the one that kind of requested to vacate and stop this 2020 process.
But I think.
But it's the other parts of this preliminary plat that, if we revoke, could impact another owner, right?
Yes.
And I think you're right, that's a reason not to revoke it today.
Right.
But to put it on an agenda for revocation so that other owners subject to this preliminary plat in
Have an
2020
opportunity to speak against it,
Right.
or in favor, or whatever. Yeah, have a
And so,
voice.
and we're okay with that kind of that mindset, but really I think our ask today is, and our point today is that we generally conform for section 23 and 24 with the 94 preliminary plat. And that was the findings whenever you approved the 22 preliminary plat, was that we generally conformed with the 94 and so much even the 2020. So we didn't get worried about the minutia of this. So what we're doing, we're kind of kicking the can down the road. Maybe as things, the developers get their idea and their mind wrapped around some stuff, they can solve it then. But in order for progress and things to occur, we felt like it was we're not creating a harm or a negative impact to either property owner by moving forward with plats that generally conform with both of them. And then maybe we can vet out the 2020 preliminary plat and have both parties come up here and kind of state their case on whether they.
So a condition of today's approval, we could approve 22 and 23 with a condition that at the next meeting, we revoke 2020.
I think
I
that's
don't
a
know
can
that's
of worms.
necessary.
You don't think that's necessary as a
Right. I think Mr. Dyson said, all you guys today need to, in your findings, state that the final plats of 23 and 24 generally conform with the 94 final plat, or preliminary plat that's been recorded. Yes. And Brandon, tell me if I'm.
Yeah, I mean, if you're intent on approving the one today, I think you have to make that finding if you're basing it on the 94 preliminary plat, so.
Russell, could you, and maybe they will, but could you bring back just those sections of the revise the preliminary plat for just the sections in question? And bring that back?
We could, but then we would still have this 2020 plat that's a larger area kind of floating around out there, so.
At least that would get these two plats.
Well, our hope is today, and we'll, if we have to, we will, but our hope is that commission today would have a finding that these two plats generally conform with the 1994 preliminary plat, much like was done whenever they approved section 22.
I would suggest that's the first question you all,
Yeah,
that
do we think
simplifies
that-
it. If you all think it's conforming with the 94 enough, then that simplifies the action today.
So the street locations, alleys.
All the same.
The same, we just narrowed the lots.
Yes, sir.
We have more lots to develop.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Russell, we're gonna let anyone else that wants to speak on this, please come forward.
Rodney Hewitt, I live on the corner of Maplewood, Stone Canyon Trail, 3201 Maplewood. My question is, y'all are bringing this forward, meeting today about voting on A, B, C, all the way through whatever. And then on your next page, page 3, you get under rezoning, and then you're talking about the rezoning of the Southwest Boulevard, which is the property they're talking about. So aren't we kind of putting the cart before the horse whenever we're changing these zoning before we address page 3 of the, excuse me, but anybody worth their salt, engineering firm, you know before how many properties you could build, and now the new drawed up deal where you went from 71 feet to 50 feet, you don't know how many more properties you can put on the property and make how much more money. It's all about money. And so my question is, why is this kind of out of sort, out of order? But you're voting on this when we should be talking about this before that's addressed.
Okay.
Because then it's kind of like, well, that was voted on and passed, that was voted on and agreed to and passed, and that was voted on and agreed and passed. And then we get over here and then we come up and address this rezoning. And it's like try to ram it down our throats because you've already done this and passed this, this, and this subdivisions of 5 acres, whatever it was. And it don't make sense.
Yes, sir. We understand.
And I'll have more questions when we get into this other part.
Thank you.
And they can't answer how many more properties they're going to have on this to sell and make money off of. The lot's going to be 50 foot. Is this going to be a duplex with 2 homes, 2 families in 1 home? What is our tax values going to become like? What is the traffic in the area going to become? What about our potential, let's talk about future gang members that want to get out and walk the streets and do stuff in the middle of the night in our quiet neighborhood. Wasn't it the previous owner wanting to build just single-family lots on this property? And then that got shot down because the city wanted him to donate land to extend Grandview from Knickerbocker all the way over to Stone Canyon Trail. Is that not true?
I'm not sure.
I mean, why did he clear the land, getting ready to build all these 100 homes, single-family homes, and then get mad, upset, sell the land because he didn't want to donate land for this expansion of Grandview all the way to Knickerbocker? Is that not true?
I don't know.
Is anybody on this board cannot answer that question? Or do you not want to answer the question?
Let me answer his first point, and maybe some of that can be delayed until the zoning case. But the short answer is, why do we not need to do the zoning first, is that these lots that they're proposing are consistent with the current zoning.
Right.
And so, but they are also consistent with the proposed new zoning. So you can approve this subdivision plat under the current zoning without the need for a rezoning. So I think it's true, if this was going from, say, single family to multifamily,
Right.
then we might need to have the zoning happen first and then the plat. But in this case, it's consistent either way.
So, and still, there's no answer or no question that's been answered about how many properties, homes, whether it's two people, two families in one duplex, living on one lot in one home with a duplex, separated with one wall with two homes. How many properties is this being expanded to from the 50 foot, from the 71 foot? But they can't tell you how many more homes they'll be able to sell?
Right. So in addressing your question specific about this final plat, as John had indicated, it's still under single-family zoning. So
Well-
I believe the minimum lot size is 50 feet.
Let me correct you there, because I
Okay.
think this is probably more an appropriate discussion for the zoning case. But the current zoning on this is RM, which is multifamily.
Okay.
The zoning is going to a lesser zoning, to RS3. Again, this is more appropriate to discuss in the zoning case.
But the zoning doesn't apply to this final plat that we're reviewing right now?
Well,
It's
these-
another section of the preliminary plat, is it not?
That's correct. The zone changes directly to the north.
Right.
So as it relates to these
You're correct.
20-something, 25 lots that we're talking about right now, they're zoned single-family, they will remain single-family. What the developer has done is, as you've indicated, they've gone from 70-foot lots to 50-foot lots. But the zoning is the same. So they can't put duplexes on these lots. They're single-family homes.
That's what the zone change is gonna be from the,
That's for another part of this larger tract of land that we're looking at. But we're only looking at these 23 lots?
23, 25.
These lots right here. For this case, and I know it's kind of confusing. So can you go back on the slides a few? Keep going back. This is a different case.
Back.
Keep going back.
Two more. There you
Keep going. Go back one or two more. Stop. Okay. So this case is about just this tract of land that's outlined in that black area. Correct. So the zoning change, I believe, is this southern portion.
here.
It's a different part of this larger tract that we're looking at. But it's all being governed by the preliminary plats and that's what's creating a ton of the confusion.
From 94 to 2000,
Yes.
2020.
Yes, sir. So as it relates to,
We need, Travis, we need him to step back to the mic so we can
I'm
get this
sorry.
on.
Could you go back? I'm sorry. Could you go back to the mic so we can hear you?
The 2020 recommendation back from the 94 differences was when the original owner was getting ready to sell for single-family homes,
Okay.
correct?
I don't know.
So like
I don't know
say,
what happened in
again,
94,
to
I'm
me,
sorry.
is you're putting the cart in front of the horse. Before we should be talking about this, we should be talking about that, because that is the overall picture, and these are just little parts that's gonna fall in with that, instead of, well, we've approved this, this, and this, and now let's just go ahead and ram it down your throat, because we've already approved this, this, and this, and now we're gonna make a decision on this.
Yes, sir.
To me, it should be, we'll make a decision and talk about this other, and then talk about this other. To me, I mean, I don't know.
I understand. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. I'm just a concerned citizen that lives there.
Completely understand.
And I'll just remind you all that contrary to the zoning that's discretionary, subdivision plats are, you're required to approve if they meet the subdivision ordinance, which these do for the current zoning on the property.
Right. Okay. Does anyone else wish to speak on this case? If you would, please state your name and your address or single member district.
I don't know my single member district now. I don't know where he is or she.
Okay.
My name is Jamal Shumpert. I stay at 2817 North Irving. And to address how many homes can be built through a simple math equation, for every 3.66 homes built, you can only build one extra home, because it's only 15 extra feet from 70 to 55. So for every 3.66 homes built, however many say they can build, you can get one extra home out of that. But I'm up here because of the obvious conflict of interest on this board. There are 3 members that are real estate agents. Beyond that, you're talking about rezoning to build a building over 5,000 square feet, where someone who's on the AFP would also benefit directly. And beyond that, we have a banker. He may not be directly in a mortgage, but his bank benefits directly from mortgages, from First Financial Bank. So all of these guys are wondering why everything's passing so quick. It's because no more than 3 of y'all in one of these businesses should be on this board. But it's very interesting to see that it's 5 of y'all, possibly 6. Everyone except for Mr. Spano. Who is that? Where is he? Is in a construction, residential or commercial business. Everyone. So maybe y'all should talk to y'all constituents and talk to us a little more honestly about what's really going on over not building a sidewalk and lowering the area of a home from 70 to 55 feet. Privacy concerns. These people don't want to be packed on each other like in a multi-family housing. So I would probably suggest some of y'all step down so that someone in the other industry outside of construction can help you guys get this town working a little bit better. Sorry for my stutter. I'm a little nervous, black guy in a room full of white people. So, thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to speak. Thank you. Okay. Does anyone else wish to speak on this case? All right.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes, sir.
I do have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
I couldn't quite figure out which one of your companies, what do they do?
I'd say that's inappropriate for,
I
that's
would
not
say
on
it's
the agenda
inappropriate
item. And
only
look,
if
the board
there
isn't required to
wasn't a
take
conflict of
questions
interest
from
here.
the
We don't
public,
know what you do, so there's already 3 realtors. So if you're actually partly a realtor, or
Stepped down, and so we've got a replacement.
who is Aguirre? Okay. Well, it'd be inappropriate to ask you right now. I'll look up and see what you're doing.
So
But
is this the
still-
time for public comment?
Yes.
This is when concerned citizens speak their mind?
Well, they're supposed to be speaking about this case specifically.
Correct, that's what I
yes.
mean, on the issue at hand. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes in this case, I already told you how many extra homes y'all could build. Y'all could just get with the builders and they just do a simple math and stop misleading the town. Because, I mean, if you want to rezone it, you should already have planned how many more homes you could build. But yeah, thank you. And
Thank you.
I still keep trying to find your businesses.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay. I'm now going to close public comment and open it up to the board here. I think in terms of moving forward, perhaps the first and easiest question that we should address is whether the 94 plat, whether the final plat today that we're reviewing is similar to the 94 preliminary plat. I think if we feel like it is, then we could potentially move forward to approve this. Would you agree with that, John?
Yes, yeah, again, and I just did a quick calculation, and the preliminary plat, or the final plat that you're looking at has 25 lots. Under the old one, it looks to be about 20 lots. So it's about a 25% increase in the density. And so that's why staff has recommended it's not consistent with the preliminary plat.
So we're looking at 5 houses?
5 houses, but again, if you do this for the entirety of the preliminary plat and you allow them to continue over that entire preliminary plat, you would be looking at potentially, 50 or more additional lots over what has already been approved in the preliminary plat.
Okay. So if we determine that the 94 plat does not, or the final plat does not conform to the 94 preliminary plat, what are the steps that the property owner can take to approve what they're proposing? Do they file a new preliminary plat for this?
Yes, they could. Our recommendation was they just finalize the 2020 plat, preliminary plat. If they don't want to do that, your condition could be that they
Well, it sounds like
simply
there's,
file a new preliminary plat that is consistent with this.
for maybe just this land, as opposed to a larger area that involves other landowners. The preliminary plat these preliminary plats that have been approved it looks like the land's been subdivided and we've got multiple owners now that may not agree with what their vision is for the small tract that they've got within that larger preliminary plat. Is that the case in this circumstance? Yeah. Okay. And so the issue is that the folks that got the 2020 preliminary plat approved didn't go through the formal process that they should have to record it when it was approved.
They're not recorded.
They chose not to.
Correct. That's correct.
And so here we are.
But now they're wanting to develop this section in a way that is consistent with that 2020 preliminary plat.
Right.
And we would argue not consistent with the 94.
Okay. Anyone else want to share their opinion?
Since we've gone round and round a few times.
Your mic's off.
Thank you. So when section 22 was approved, it was stated that it conformed to 1994 plat, correct?
That's what they said.
Okay. So if 22 butts to 23 via the alley, unless I'm completely not understanding, I don't understand why section 23 and 24 would not also conform.
Was there a significant change in 22 in terms of density from the 94 plat?
I'll be honest, I'd have to go back, but I believe there was. I believe that the one we approved was consistent with the 2020 preliminary plat, and this one definitely are much smaller lots.
Okay.
we have any idea when the Section 22 plat was approved on commission?
I believe it was January or late last year.
Okay.
It's within the last year.
Okay, thanks, Jeff.
So we have a preliminary plat in 2020 that was approved that no one wants to sign off on. So effectively, we don't have the 2020 preliminary plat. So I tend to agree with the staff that adding 5 houses is a relatively significant change, although I think it's consistent with the development of this area of the community. I personally would like to see a preliminary plat that is more indicative of the final plat. And I know that it requires a little extra work and maybe some time to do that. But in this circumstance, I think that makes the most sense. And maybe have a departure from the preliminary plat that has multiple property owners that are impacted, and just focus on the tracts that we're trying to approve.
Travis, my only consideration would be the cost. You know, when you take a look at, if you go back to the time frame we're looking back in the 90s, now to today, and with all of the cost, 5 houses to me does not seem extraordinary. And I think that with the cost of purchasing a house, building a house, and everything else, what we're trying to do is be able to provide appropriate housing, for a lot of folks that can't afford the larger homes. So to me, 5 houses is not that significant.
Okay.
And it's still gonna be beautiful properties. It's a nice area. So that would be my only take, is that I do believe the builder is in a position where something has to be done due to the cost to build and the cost to purchase.
Okay.
When it's 5 lots over 2 blocks. And it's 55-foot widths as opposed to 70-ish, I think. So I agree with Trinidad.
It's close enough in your mind? Okay.
I'm trying to map on Maplewood and some of those, what the lot frontage is. On the portion of Grandview that's closer to College Hills, those lots tend to be considerably wider. I'm just trying to figure out what these lots would be, or are, because they don't have frontage.
Question?
Yes, sir. We can open it up for public comment for a question, yes.
Rodney Hewitt, 3201 Maplewood Drive. Question is, what is a typical lot size for a patio home? And we're talking about that little section there, 5 homes in that little section, but you see the big picture, how many more homes? That little section is at least, 10 times bigger, smaller than the bigger section? So 10 times 5, we're talking about an additional 50 homes in that area?
Yes, sir.
And it's on bring our property values down because of the cost of the initial cost of the houses? Is that correct?
I don't
I
know
don't
that I
think so.
agree with that.
No.
So you're building smaller homes and putting 2 homes per lot?
No, sir.
No.
No?
Not in this subdivision. No, sir.
Not in that subdivision?
Not in this tract. Not in this tract.
Not in this tract, but the rest of the tract?
The rezoning, I think, really may be your primary concern, and I believe that it's part of this larger area that we're discussing, but it is not specific to this tract of land that we're reviewing right now. So these will be single-family lots. They were before we started this morning. They will remain after we adjourn today.
Even after this zone change?
Yes, sir.
If
There's
it
not,
gets-
no. There's not a zone change on this tract. These are single-family lots.
Okay?
They
So
are- they are
The rest
smaller.
of the brown that's not inside of the tract that says subject property?
Yes.
Those will be subject to duplexes, 2 homes on 1 lot.
There is a small area, I believe, within this larger tract that there is a rezoning proposed, but it is not this tract that we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
And I can add to that, Travis, as you see on the map on the right, this entire area is currently zoned RM1.
Okay.
So you could
And that's
have
more density
two-story-
than single-family.
Yes, you could have 2-story duplexes, triplexes, you could have 8-unit buildings, this could be apartment complexes under the current zoning.
That's the current zoning.
And
That's
we're-
But what the developer's proposing for this tract is single-family homes on 50-foot lots.
Yeah, on.
Or 55-foot
just the
lots.
subject property, not the whole area.
Correct.
So,
There's another area of this larger tract of
Picture.
vacant land that we will discuss, some sort of multifamily development. And at that time, I think your
is that
concerns,
gonna be page 3 where it's rezoned?
yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
So-
sir. But not this tract.
right. Subject property, I understand that.
Yes,
Say
sir.
It's right there across from my home.
Okay. So this is single-family homes
Right.
across from you.
So they're looking at what, for that amount of land, having about what? How many
25
in
homes.
that? Being a 50-foot wide versus 71 foot, how many
55.
homes?
55 versus 71, so we think that there are 4 or 5 more homes in this
In this subject property?
in this 2-block section
But
that would be added with the
On the
narrower
overall
lots.
picture, once this is approved, whatever, the overall picture is gonna be how much more block,
And the problem, and that, we keep kind of talking about this, there's a preliminary plat that has been subdivided, and we have multiple property owners that are associated with that larger tract. So as it relates to just this smaller tract, the one owner, these are single-family homes. They're slightly narrower by 15 feet than the 1994 plat that was submitted. But there's one in 2020 that we approved for lots that were 55 feet, which is what they're proposing to put on this land. 55-foot, single-family homes.
so I guess I need
55-foot
to sit
lot.
down until we get further into the rest of the,
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Rocky Templin, section, District 6, since we opened it back up. So if Section 22 was approved based on 1994 preliminary plat and the density of the lots were increased then I
Right.
do not know how now Sections 23 and 24 do not conform to the 1994 preliminary plat.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Templin. All right, I'm going to close public comment. Anyone else wish to share their thoughts or make a motion on this tract?
Can we go back to the conditions?
Are these 50-foot or 55-foot lots? Russell, do you know? 55. 71 is what was said.
Question is on condition number 1, because it's tying section 22 back to November 2020. Doesn't say section 23, which is what all of our discussion has been about today. So now you're trying to tie back the section 22 into November 2020 plat when it was already approved for, on the 1994 plat?
I think you can just remove that word section 22. It should be the Southland Hills Edition preliminary plat from November 2020. But as Travis alluded to, you wouldn't necessarily have to require them to finalize the 2020 plat, they could come back with a new preliminary plat. It would be simpler for them if they could agree to finalize that one because it's already been approved by you all.
Right. But they've indicated that they don't want to do that.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion that's going to be just as crazy to understand as all of this. So I'm going to make a motion to approve this, remove condition number 1, and state in there that everything generally conforms to the 1994 plat, period.
Okay? Are all the other conditions satisfactory to you?
Let me read through them again real slowly. Okay, can you move it up? Okay. Motion.
We have a motion on the table right now, Tony. I'm sorry. And we have a second. Okay. So we have a motion and a second to approve striking condition 1 of the staff's recommendations. Is that correct?
So far. Okay. Okay, and then so I'm still holding on to my motion, but I have a question also for staff. So number 5 and number 6. Number 5 is talking about the streets with either sidewalk or not, which that is up to the builder and for what they want to do. And then number the other way. Thank you. 6. We're still talking about streets? What are we talking about?
No, 6, yeah,
Okay.
6 is actually a part of 5. I think that just accidentally got a next number.
Typically, sewer is independent and separate. 6 should say sewer in front of the second.
Okay, because it's repeating. Yeah.
It's repetitive of what is in 5. So,
Go
yeah,
to-
6, the
go
one
back
in
to
your
5,
staff
would
report
you?
is correct. The PowerPoint is wrong.
And then back to 6, typically, you don't say anything about sewer, about the sewer mains. So 6 should say, if you look at the report for, 24, it says sewer mains. So 6 should say install sewer mains and sewer services at the beginning of 6, but
And as I said, it's correct in your staff report. The condition number 6 relates to sewer. And so it's just, what's on your screen on 6 is just part of 5. And so 6 isn't showing up on your screen, but it is correct in the staff report.
Okay, and then, so if we're doing this as part of the motion, then number 6 needs to be sewer and not go by what's in, because this is what's
Yeah,
being
make the
recorded.
change.
And being, it's on right now. So number 6 needs to be changed to sewer.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve striking condition 1 and revising note 6 to include sewer or to be related to sewer. Is that correct?
Yeah. Related, I like that.
And we have a second. So we have a motion and a second to approve. Striking note 1, amending note 6 to specifically reference sewer mains. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Aye. 6-1. Okay. Next case, C, Southland Hills Edition, Section 24. A request for approval of a final plat for Southland Hills Edition, Section 23. Should be 24, I believe. Being 3.588 acres located southeast of Valley View Boulevard and Stone Canyon Trail.
Rafael Alvarado, planner with Plannering and Development Services. This is Southland Hills Edition, Section 24, along Forest Hill Drive and Stone Canyon. The subject plat is 3.588 acres, District 6, Larry Miller, in the Southland neighborhood. These are the future land use and zoning maps for the tract. This is the final plat itself. And here we have the same slides as the previous final plat. Staff recommends approval of Southland Hills Edition Section 24 with 7 conditions.
It's the same conditions as the last case, I'm
That is-
assuming?
That is correct.
Okay. Anyone have questions for the staff?
And I think, given your recommendation or approval on the last case, we would simply recommend the same on this one.
Well,
Okay.
this one does say number 6 is the sewer.
Yeah, it has it correct here.
Okay. Any more questions for the staff? I'm going to open it up for public comment. If you wish to speak on this case, please come forward, state your name, address, or single-member district. All right, I'm going to close public comment. Anyone wish to make a motion or share their thoughts?
Make a motion to approve, scratching condition number 1.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve, striking condition 1 of the staff's recommendations. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. 6-1. D, third replat of Tract C, Meadow Creek Edition. A request for approval of a third replat of Tract C, Meadow Creek Edition, being 1.958 acres southeast of West Loop 306 and Southwest Boulevard.
Thank you, Planning Commissioners. Jeff Fisher, Chief Planner. Our next case is the third replat of Tract C, Meadow Creek Edition, southeast of West Loop 306 and Southwest Boulevard. This is District 6, Larry Miller in the Southland neighborhood. This is the McDonald's on Southwest. McDonald's wants to demolish that building that you see on the bottom of that bottom tract and then build over those 2 tracts. These were remainders within a platted subdivision. But because they're crossing over the lot lines as remainders, they need to replat. This is an example of it. That third remainder is not owned by McDonald's. It's a separate property. But McDonald's owns the south lot, and they will be buying the north lot from what used to be the Alon gas station now that that's removed. Staff believes the plat conforms with the comprehensive plan and purpose statements. Planning staff is recommending a sidewalk along Southwest. When the contractors did reconstruction, and they're still out there now on Southwest, they removed a portion of the sidewalk. McDonald's will be putting that back in. And that will connect to a future sidewalk on 306 when TxDOT puts it in. So they've already submitted a building permit and a site plan that shows that sidewalk connection. So we'll basically be just restating that request for a sidewalk. And the applicant out of DFW apologizes. He's had a flat tire and he couldn't make it today, but he is in support of the request and he's good with the sidewalk. So here's a quick map showing the area. There's the sidewalk that the applicant would put in. The bottom half of that was already in before until they reconstructed Southwest, and they just be extending it up to the corner, and then TxDOT will come in and do the sidewalks that you see in blue. Just a couple photos of the area. You can see it's still under construction. Staff recommends approval of this third replat of Tract C Meadow Creek Edition and recommends the installation of a sidewalk subject to 4 conditions, tax certificate, a couple notes on the plat. They just need to change the naming conventions. Copy of the recorded deed. 3, I guess, is probably important, unique condition because Alon still owns the north property before they can record the plat. It's still two different remainders, and so they'll have to transfer ownership. I understand that'll be done probably next week, and so we'll get a copy of that deed, and then this can move forward. And then 4 is just a note about the fire hydrants. Any questions?
Can you go back to the sidewalk statement,
Yep.
please? Okay, so on that, you said that TxDOT is building the sidewalk there, is that correct?
Looks like they're building the blue
On the access?
on the
and then-
north and south side of the highway there.
And then the applicant is building on Southwest, is that correct?
Correct. So there was a sidewalk, the south part of that orange, and it was removed due to construction. And so they're going to put that back in and go all the way up to the corner. And then the Loop 306 side would be done by TxDOT.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And
Jeff.
that's in their 2020 plans, so they're probably just a little behind, but that should be done soon.
Thank you.
Staff doesn't have an issue if the sidewalks are not constructed simultaneously, right? Because we're waiting on TxDOT.
Correct. That's right. My understanding is they're working with, McDonald's is working with them. And so when TxDOT puts in theirs, they'll hopefully round that corner, or TxDOT will round the corner so that they connect.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fisher.
Yep.
I open it up for public comment.
Tony Jones, developer and builder here in San Angelo, and I have a question for planning. It's rhetorical for the most part, but given the push for sidewalks where they're really needed and wanted, why on God's green earth did we go out there and spend a couple of $1 million to cross the Arroyo where Southwest is? And there are thousands of apartments on Green Meadow there, 2 ant trails that go on each side of Southwest to the convenience store and to McDonald's. Why on God's green earth didn't John plan for sidewalks across the Arroyo?
Thank you, Tony.
Yeah, and I didn't cover that in too much depth today, but our rationale for sorry.
No, you're good. Mitchell Gatlin, Engineering Services. We're currently under construction on the Southwest Boulevard project. So there actually are sidewalks being constructed on both sides of Southwest from Green Meadow to the access road. Right now, that sidewalk in front of McDonald's has been removed by the contractor. It's kind of a joint effort right now. Originally, McDonald's was going to close down. We were going to be in there doing construction. We all know things happen in construction, so that didn't end up happening. And so it's been just some coordination between the city and McDonald's on, trying to minimize disruption to their business. So that's why the sidewalks have not been replaced yet. From our conversations with McDonald's, though, they will be replacing those sidewalks, tying into what our contractors have been doing right there.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitchell.
Rocky Templin, District 6.
Yes,
I do
sir.
have a question when it comes to notes. So when there's notes, those notes are not actually on the plat, is that correct?
Correct.
So therefore, those notes are not valid, it's just a comment?
It depends. So some notes, if the note specifies that it needs to be labeled on the plat, for example, like the fire hydrant, then yes. Other notes do not need to be on the plat.
So where this one says, TxDOT sidewalk along West Loop 306 frontage roads, and prior to final occupancy will install the sidewalk.
Can you show us the notes, please?
Note number 2.
So this note would not be required to be labeled on the plat itself. The
So how-
sidewalk plan would be something that would be submitted separately.
So how do I know that? That is not, or on the plat, or will be on the plat, as far as notes?
That's correct. This will not have to be on the plat.
But how do I know that? It doesn't say that.
If it doesn't say that it has to be on the plat, then it doesn't have to be on the plat.
Okay, so then really it's not valid, because it's not on the plat.
No, the sidewalk requirement is through the platting process, but staff has agreed in this case to defer. We don't always agree to the deferral. And so because that sidewalk requirement under the current ordinance is under the subdivision ordinance. We have the right to ask for that through the plating process, but in this case, because they've already come in with permits, and we want to be reasonable for them since they're so close to construction, we've deferred that to the building permit stage. But we want to make sure that it's noted that it still was reviewed as part of the plat process. So we still have the teeth to ask for a sidewalk at the plat. We can either make them do it now or we can defer. In this case, we believe, with most commercial projects, we believe it's appropriate to defer.
So they'll be able to defer the final occupancy of McDonald's until TxDOT installs the sidewalks?
They could, then, yes, so two things. They have to show the plan at time of before the building permit can be issued, and they submitted that with their permit. They just don't have to finish construction until final occupancy. That way the permit can be issued and they can start construction. They can go all the way up to the end, but before they get a final inspection to occupy the new McDonald's, they'd have to install the sidewalk.
And if TxDOT doesn't install that, then they will not get a final occupancy?
That's correct, but the permit can move forward. Yes, sir.
Wow. Okay, anyone else wish to speak on this? All right, I'm going to close public comment. Anyone wish to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve as presented. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? 7-0. Northwood Estates, Section 2D3. Request for approval of final plat for Northwood Estates, Section 2-D3, being 5.010 acres northwest of FM 2105 and Antelope Trail, and a variance from Chapter 103A2 of the subdivision ordinance to maintain a 26-foot paving width for Antelope Trail, a rural collector street.
Thank you. Jeff Fisher again. Northwood Estates, Section 2D3. This is a one-lot subdivision in the ETJ. It's very straightforward for a new single-family home. There was a preliminary plat that was approved in 2014 for that very lot and a number of other lots in that area. We're not requiring any sidewalks or any other requirements from planning in this case. They did request a variance. Antelope's trail is only 26 feet wide, but the preliminary plat had already granted the commission at the time full variance for the street widths for all the lots along Antelope, so we don't need to revisit it again. So we're going to set aside and not require that variance. So you'd just be looking at the plat today. So here's the lot. It's just over 5 acres. It conforms with the comp plan and the purpose statements. Again, the paving width variance is not required because it was already approved with the 2014 preliminary plat. There's the lot in proximity to the overall preliminary plat. This is the subject property, and this is southbound on Antelope Trail. So staff recommends approval of this final plat of Northwood Estates 2D3 and not require a variance from paving improvements on Antelope Trail, subject to 4 conditions of approval. Tax certificate, submit a revised final plat illustrating the closest major street FM 2288 and delineate the distance with a broken line. Drainage study, provide a site plan showing existing structures. And then the notes, obtain a drive permit in coordination with the county commissioner and road superintendent, because this is in the ETJ. Obtain an address from Concho Valley Council of Governments, and then the note about the variance. Any questions?
Can you go to the screen that was before the conditions started? That one. Oh, no, one more.
One more?
Forward. Forward.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Forward, forward. There, stop.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is saying that they need to set aside a paving improvement?
Correct. Because they applied in their application, we just wanted to note that they didn't actually need that variance at all. because there was already a decision made in 2014 for the lots on Antelope Trail, so we don't need to discuss it.
So staff's okay with the 26-foot paving width?
Yes.
Correct.
And we've approved a couple other administrative plots along that street with the same width.
Anyone have questions, other questions for the staff? All right, we're going to open it up for public comment.
Russell Gully with SKG, just would be happy to answer any questions and ask your approval as presented. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this case? All right, I'm going to close public comment. Anyone wish to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 7-0. Item F, the Meridian, Section 1A. Request for approval of the final plat of the Meridian, Section 1A, being 9.572 acres, generally located west of Dominion Ridge and Coral Way, and a request to remove the requirement for sidewalks along both sides of Royal Oak Drive and Urban Minor Collector Street.
And Chair Stribling, if we could do item F and G, if you wanted to read G in the record as one presentation.
Item G, the Meridian, Section 1B, a request for approval of a final plat of the Meridian, Section 1B, being 8.754 acres, generally located west of Dominion Ridge and Coral Way, and a request to remove the requirement for sidewalks along both sides of Royal Oak Drive and Urban Minor Collector Street.
Thank you. We're going to do these two together since they're side by side. These were approved, I believe, last year for 1A and 1B that you all approved for the subdivision. The discussion today is just to request the removal of the sidewalk. We had asked for sidewalks along the south end of, or excuse me, on both sides, south and north side of Coral Way as it extends through those plats. You all had approved those sidewalks, and similar to a couple months ago, the applicant has requested that the sidewalk requirement be removed. All the other conditions would stay the same. So we're just going to focus on that today. 1A is 9.572 acres as Dominion Ridge extends to the west, and 1B is 8.754 acres. And it's in District 6, Larry Miller, in the Bonham neighborhood. So these are the plats, and you all had approved that sidewalk on May 17th, 2021. It felt like last year, but it was this year. So the red dotted lines indicate the sidewalk requirements. The request now is to remove that sidewalk. So I'll just go over quickly the staff's policy. The new sidewalk ordinance is in discussion, but it hasn't been finalized yet. And there's still kind of a back and forth on collectors, what's minor, what's major. So we're sticking with our current ordinance at this time because that's what's in effect. And we believe sidewalk should be required on an urban collector street, which is where Royal Oak is in that picture at the bottom. The purple indicates the subject area. Secondly, the preliminary plat, which is outlined in the red. So it's the purple plus that kind of half circle in the red. That's the entire area. That's going to extend another 1,500 feet. And so the lots will be developed there. So similar to past decisions, if we miss the opportunity to get a sidewalk and more lots get developed, there's going to be issues. The third reason, I think independent of the sidewalk ordinance, is some of these areas to the north and northwest could be annexed. That's a very large area of residential. There could be some commercial pockets in there too. So that collector street, whether it ends up staying there or realigned later, is going to generate a lot of lots, and that means more walking and pedestrian traffic. So for those reasons, we'd like to maintain our position on this one from May and sustain the sidewalks on both sides. And like I said, the conditions are the same if you'd like me to read those in or not, or we can move on.
So the only change to the plats that have been approved is the removal of the sidewalk requirement. Is that correct?
Yes. The lot sizes, the lot numbers, the configurations are identical.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Open it.
I got a question on, okay, under number 2, urban collector roadway with a minimum 50 feet of pavement. Okay, never mind. I should have just
That's all right.
kept reading. Okay.
Yeah, okay,
Thanks, Jeff.
sure.
All right, we're going to open it up for public comment.
Austin Aguero, builder, developer of this section here. I have less to say on sidewalks than probably 90% of the guys behind me. I'm speaking more to just this section and what's coming here and what we know of the future here. Our plan, of course, is residential building through this area. The majority of that area has been pre-platted for residential building, RS1 zoning. All of it is pre-zoned for residential. So to throw out the opportunity of possible commercial amongst residential buildings is my primary concern here. The 50-foot pavement width we have going through there we feel is adequate for pedestrians to walk along without the need for sidewalks. We're lodged in the middle of 2 undeveloped sections currently, and both sections they're speaking to do RS1 zoning. So for us to come in here and do a sidewalk while sidewalks are so up in the air seems just premature. You're taking an opportunity to place a burden on us for something that we don't feel is necessary to the area. The sidewalks are starting from nothing and ending at nothing. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Danny Aguero, also builder developer of this area. The other thing that I look at as far as this sidewalk, we have 2 in place, which we didn't ask to put 2 in place. As he said earlier, that was what was recommended or brought to do. We're not interested in doing 2 sidewalks on both sides of the street, giving that burden to the customer to take care of for the rest of their life. As you go along the whole city right now and look at all the old sidewalks we have everywhere, they're uplifted and they're just not even being taken care of by anybody. The customer does not want to have to pay $3,000 to $4,000, $5,000, $7,000 to replace them because the going price is going up every day. And you know that and I know that. I mean, every lot that we have there will cost us anywhere for one lot, at least $3,000 plus to build that sidewalk, to attach it to the openings at every section. And right now, to have 2 on both sides is crazy. I mean, like Austin said, we are in a location where we go to nowhere. The streets are smaller off of Coral Way that come and join to this Royal Oaks, and we have no sidewalks there. That place has been established. We have homes and vacant lots there that have no sidewalks, and yet it's going to come into our area where we have sidewalks just for one little location. Now, I don't see us going into future commercial in that area. If you were to pull up the old plats that we had designed out there, there are multiple homes coming up in that area. The landowner that's bought the land on the north side of us is looking for multiple homes. We're not looking for commercial. We're nowhere near commercial in that area. I mean, it's too far away. I just feel like it's wrong to put sidewalks in there when we're going from nowhere to nowhere. And we're creating more cost for the customer to take care of in the future.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to speak on this case?
Rocky Templin, District 6. As you look at your thoroughfare map there, you'll see that there's a blue dotted line. I believe I am colorblind, but I'm going to call it blue. On Coral Way, there's a 100-foot drainage ditch there, and Coral Way is not going to cross there unless the city's going to put it in. And then when you look at Royal Oak, if you go back to Royal Oak and you go back to the blocks to the northeast, the next block, which is not in, which will be the 5,000 block, it will be 40 foot. The 4,900 block is 36 foot. and goes to 40 foot. And the 4800 block is 36 foot, and the 4700 block is 36 foot, which dead ends. So Royal Oak to the northeast just dead ends. Royal Oak to the southwest is not going to be as that map is drawn. I can tell you that because I own that property, and Royal Oak will not cross there. So it may go farther to the west and connect with Appaloosa, but you're bringing traffic down what in the beginning said a future urban collector, and you're bringing the people to turn on Coral Way, which is a dead-end street, so they're going to go straight down Royal Oak, which is a 40-foot, which transitions to a 36-foot street. Section 5, sidewalk shall be required on lots that are platted adjacent to the road or a street with a pavement width of less than 36 feet. This is 60 years old. I think it was kind of meant that the narrower the street, they should have sidewalks, which makes sense to me. I've been developing. The wider the streets, the more ease of traffic and the more able to walk. So here you've got a wider street, but yet you want sidewalks because you're saying they can't walk on narrower streets, which is more dangerous. So you take all the streets that are 24, 26, 28, less than 36 feet in San Angelo that doesn't have sidewalks since 1960, they should have had sidewalks.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? All right, I'm going to close public comment.
I'm going to make a motion to approve Meridian Section 1 and Section B and remove the sidewalks. Yes.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve with the removal of sidewalks on, is it Royal Oak? Yes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. 6-1. And just to clarify, clearly the sidewalk discussion is just beginning, and I'd like to have a better direction from the staff on what we're doing with sidewalks before we pull up old plats and approve and make changes. And I'd just like some consistency in the direction that we're going.
Right now, we have the rules, though, so we have to follow what's in place right now. We can't look at
We
future
also have a
sidewalk
plat that was
ordinance.
approved before, so we didn't have to.
Right, we did not,
Make
but
the
it
change
was,
there, and
I
we
think
did.
it was on the consent agenda with some other ones that got approved with a sidewalk that we kind of slid through, so.
Okay.
Moving forward.
Just a quick note, we had recommended to the applicants on this and the next case that it would probably be better to wait on your all giving us clear direction on the sidewalk ordinance. As you may recall, the minor collectors was the one piece that you all had not come to a final decision. So that's part of our recommendation for not removing the sidewalks, was that it was premature until you all had given clear direction, because now not having sidewalks on this piece, if you all end up deciding that minor collectors should have sidewalks,
right,
then we're going to have a whole bunch of sidewalk, and this will be the only gap.
Well, it's not just us, it's the city council. And we're an advisory board at this point, so we need the city council to hear the sidewalk discussion and make a ruling and give us a direction. So, okay. Next item, H, Bentwood Country Club Estates, Section 43. A request for approval of a final plat of Bentwood Country Club Estates, Section 43, being 25.061 acres, generally located southwest of Wolf Creek Drive and Crystal Point Drive, removing the requirement for a sidewalk on Wolf Creek Drive.
Okay, and we're also going to do 43 and 44 together, if you'd like to read that.
So I'm going to
one
read
in.
IN.
Thank
Bentwood
you.
Country Club Estates, Section 44. A request for approval of a final plat of Bentwood Country Club Estates, Section 44, being 8.051 acres, generally located east of Clubhouse Lane and Enclave Court, removing the requirement for a sidewalk on Clubhouse Lane.
Okay. Next cases, 43 and 44 Bentwood Country Club Estates. So the first one is 43. Y'all had approved that last year as well. And again, these are the same as the previous cases. We're just here to discuss removal of the sidewalks and whether to do that or not. No changes to the lot configurations or the lot sizes. So 43 is 25.061 acres. It's southwest of Wolf Creek Drive and Crystal Point Drive. So at that time, you all had approved a sidewalk along the west side of Wolf Creek, so that's what they're requesting to be removed. And on Bentwood Country Club 44, you all had approved one sidewalk on the south side of Clubhouse Lane. And so, again, do we want to remove that one or not? This is 43, single-family homes, and this is 44, also single-family homes. Here's a map of what's been approved in the area. So 41 did not come back. There was a requirement for a sidewalk on 41. That's still in effect. 42A, they came back a few months ago. Our position, again, based on our current subdivision ordinance, was to require one. You all had approved removal of that sidewalk, so 42A doesn't have one, and here we are looking at 43 and 44. Do we want to have sidewalks or not? Again, staff policy is to go until we hear otherwise with the current subdivision ordinance. So again, on an urban collector road, we believe that a sidewalk should be required. In this case as well, Clubhouse Lane is going to continue that development as it goes further east. More annexations are done over to Wolf Creek. And then that two collectors kind of, I guess, T-bone at a 90-degree, and then you have another arterial coming off of that. So again, we just don't know at this point. Maybe it's going to be more residential, maybe it's going to be more commercial, but we believe that sidewalk should, the same, what was already approved should stay the course for now. Any questions or comments?
Any questions for the staff?
What are the road widths of Wolf Creek and Country Club?
So those are collectors as well, so 50 feet. So it'll be 50-foot paved and 60 feet of right-of-way.
So they're minor collector streets, right?
Correct. Correct. And right now in the ordinance, whether you're a minor or a major, they are minor, it's the same, so it's 50 feet.
Well, I think the ordinance just says it's up to the discretion of staff if it's over 36 feet, basically, does it not?
For a sidewalk?
But that's an internal policy.
Yes, correct. You're absolutely right. Yeah, there's nothing in the ordinance that says if you're on a collector right now, you have to do a sidewalk. That is our internal policy.
Right. It just says it could be required.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Open it up for public comment.
Russell Gully with SKG Engineering. For section 43 and 44, we would ask your approval of the plats with approval of the variance from the sidewalk requirements from staff. 41 hasn't been brought back yet. That's a multifamily project going in there. They have a lot of internal sidewalks coming from theirs that tie into it. It's up along the frontage road, so most likely probably won't see anything come back on that. We believe there is a strong argument for a sidewalk there, but when we start looking internal into the remainder of Bentwood and kind of that little southeast corner there, that's Bentwood has a large area of that under ownership and then options to buy the remainder of kind of that Sheen property there. But their intent ultimately is just more single-family residential in that area. So there's really no plan from Bentwood to do anything other than more single-family residential in that area. It's a golf course area, so you're prolific of golf carts out in that area that travel on the roadways and not really on sidewalks. So we'll just ask you to approve the variance request on 43 and 44. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else wish to speak on this? All right. Yes, sir.
Tony Jones, builder and developer. And so this situation is a continuation of section 42A, obviously.
Yes, sir.
I would just like to point out, and this morning is a perfect example of The information that you've received, information that council has received for the last several years has in many cases been flawed and inconsistent.
Yes.
Untrue. As Terry pointed out, they could be required, but, you know, the other way of saying that is that they're not required. And so, moving forward, you know, I think fundamentally, from a planning department or an engineering department or from my department, you need clarification on what I'm going to do.
No question.
When I'm going to do it, and what's required of me. And I think for the most part, in the private sector, we have to do what we say we're going to do. And we can't cross lines and suggest or, you know, to our buyers, our consumers, we can't make decisions predicated on something we want. We have to make decisions on reality. And so that's my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I feel like I'm Cam Newton. I'm back. Did y'all see that yesterday? Kevin Collins from Bentwood Estates. Only thing I'd like to add is when you look at section 43, 44, and 45, there's about 100 lots in those three sections. And we're asking to remove sidewalks off of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. So there would be just 8 lots that would have sidewalks out of 100. So I think it's regardless of where we go with the sidewalk ordinance, I think this would still meet kind of a variance option simply because there's no other sidewalk just in these three sections, not to mention the other 1,500 homes in Bentwood.
Thank you.
Austin Guerrero, builder developer. I think the issue with sidewalks throughout the city is consistency. These sections are located within a development, doesn't have very many sidewalks. We had them removed from a section that's adjacent to the sections in question. It doesn't make any sense to continue sidewalks through areas that don't have them. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this? All right, I'm going to close public comment. And I have the same thoughts on this case that I did the other one. I would like a direction from our city council on sidewalks before we go back and pull up old plats that have been approved and grant variances for sidewalks. I want a direction. I want consistency, just like all of you guys. And I'm frustrated. It's frustrating to sit up here and have these cases where we're pulling up plats that have been approved and we've got sidewalks in some areas, and this should be done administratively. The vision should be that clear for sidewalks. And we can grant variances maybe in special circumstances where we may feel like they don't need to go and they're required, but this is, I'd like to review and discuss these after the city council has given us direction on sidewalks. Anyone else want to share their thoughts or make a motion?
I want to make a motion to approve Bentwood Country Club Estates, Section 43 and 44, remove the required sidewalks on Wolf Creek Drive, and remove the sidewalks on Clubhouse Lane.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve with the removal of sidewalks in these two plats. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. 5-2.
And I agree with you, Travis. I would like clarification.
Thank you. That's it. I'm not opposed to taking sidewalks that we've approved before. I just want to have let's give me a direction.
But right now, we have to use what's in place. We can't look at the future still. We
They were
can't
approved
get the
already.
crystal.
They were already approved.
They're right, and they're back on here. They
Okay.
paid again to bring this back, and so we're using
Next
what the
item.
rules are now and not in the future.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Rezonings. City Council has final authority for approval of rezonings. A, Z21-15 Valley View Boulevard and College Hills Boulevard, a request for approval of a zone change from RM1, low-rise multifamily residence district, to the RS3, zero lot line townhome and twin home residence district, being roughly 20 acres, located at Valley View Boulevard and College Hills Boulevard. Excuse me.
Rafael Alvarado, planner with Planning and Development Services. This is zone change 21-15, Valley View and College Hills. The area that is being changed is approximately 20 acres. A GIS gave it to me as 20 acres. And the reason I don't have an exact acreage is that it's essentially a portion out of the preliminary plat, as you can see by the legal description. It is District 1, Tommy Hebert, Bonham neighborhood. These are the future land use and zoning district maps. The zone change is from RM1 to RS3. Ignore CN to CG. This is the notification map. There have been 2 opposition, 0 in support, and I believe 45 notices were mailed out.
Do you have the
We have not
opposition?
received any opposition.
No.
Except for the gentleman that was speaking earlier. You said you've received 2 notices.
Yes, I've received 1 in the mail and then 1 from Mr.
Do you have
Hewitt.
a copy of the one that you've received in the mail?
It's in the office.
Okay.
Can you go get it?
Can you tell us what it says? Thank you. I'm sorry, go ahead.
However, with those in opposition, their area doesn't accumulate to the 20% necessary to overturn the decision. These are images of the site. And these are the 2 collectors that touch the site, Valley View Boulevard and College Hills Boulevard. Staff's rationale for approving the zone change is it's consistent with the future use of the area in being residential. It's consistent in the zone change that it's maintaining a residential land use. Its proximity to collectors and its proximity to Knickerbocker lend it to having a denser housing arrangement. And there is a significant community need in that area, as that is the area towards where San Angelo is expanding to. Staff recommends approval of zone change from RM1 to RS3 for the lot located at Valley View Boulevard and College Hills Boulevard, with 0 conditions.
Okay.
So, Raphael, how many letters were mailed out?
45.
45? That says 11 on there. I think.
Yes. But on the map, you can see the parcels that have been indicated as being within the 200-foot boundary. On the parcels, there's a number indicating which letter it corresponds to. I apologize for the information on the right being incorrect.
So when we get the letter in a minute, where did the letter come from?
It
Which
came
lot?
from property 35, right here, that one.
Okay.
And I do believe Mr. Hewitt's property is somewhere in here. Is that correct, sir?
Corner of Maplewood, Stone Canyon Trail.
Yeah, somewhere in there. The pointer went away.
Across from the black line.
Okay. I have a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
First one, the sections that we reviewed and approved earlier in our meeting are south of this land, is that correct?
That's correct. The other 2 sections would be directly to the south, abutting Maplewood.
And on the west, kind of the west side of that area?
Along Stone Canyon.
Okay. Can you talk about the densities allowed in the 2 zonings that were from where we are now and where we're going to?
Generally, the zoning, it will stay multifamily. However, it is decreasing in options. RM1 has, I believe, 8 different housing options. RS3 only has the 3.
Do you know the maximum density, like units per acre, that's allowed in those zoning classifications? Is that something that's available, John?
Are we talking, I have the ordinance up here on the website. Are we looking at floor area ratio? Or
Yeah, I'm just,
number of units?
I think number of
something that
units per
speaks to
acre.
intensity of development,
RM1 is 25 units an acre.
okay? And what about RS3?
There's no density units an acre, it's just floor area ratio per lot. It's on a per lot basis in RS3.
It's 3?
He said RS3, the zoning.
There's none.
But RS3 does only allow 0 lot line homes, twin homes, which would be like a duplex or townhomes.
Is there a minimum lot width?
I believe 40. It
40?
varies for each type of development.
Yeah.
But I think the shortest lot width is 45 feet.
So it varies by the type of home you're putting on the lot, but 45 feet is the narrowest.
So a
45.
single family is 50, a 0 lot line is 40 minimum.
40.
But again, this change would eliminate the possibility of apartment buildings.
Right.
That would be larger
We're having
than like a
we're
duplex.
looking at a significant reduction in density.
Correct.
Just wanted to,
So I think some of the opposition is concerned with what
The
we're
intensity.
going to, but it's
Yes.
not going from single family to this, it's going down from multifamily to
yes, sir.
this.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else have questions for the staff? All right, thank you, Raphael. We're going to open it up for public comment.
Russell Gully with SKG Engineering. Really, the main reason for this, and it's probably one that nobody could really anticipate, it's stormwater. We're asking for this change because of stormwater. And so as part of the development, we're having to do a stormwater study and analysis of this. And as part of that, as an RM1 zoning, we have to use a runoff coefficient of a 0.75. And so we take existing conditions at a 0.3 and we look at the zoning of an RM1 of 0.75, so that's a fairly significant increase in stormwater runoff. But if we zone change it to an RS3 or any RS zoning, we get to use a runoff coefficient of a 0.5. So really, this is, the only thing the benefit is to us is from the stormwater perspective. The developer is happy to leave it at an RM1, but it just gives them a little, if we're going to have to do a detention pond, it allows us to construct a detention pond a little bit smaller. And so really, we're just kind of here today from a stormwater perspective. And we're all right, Mr. James is right. This is a less dense zoning classification. We're removing the multifamily perspective, or they can't put multifamily on these lots anymore. So really, we believe we're probably maybe helping some of the residential owners in the area to remain single-family residential and not multifamily. Potentially, in the future, we may come forward and rezone the remainder of this to the south, RS3, but right now our focus is our stormwater detention and what is draining out towards Valley View. So really, that's the main focus is stormwater, and really just happy to answer any other questions.
Anyone else have questions for Mr. Gully? Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this case? Please come forward.
So what I'm understanding is, Rodney Hewitt, 3201 Maplewood.
Yes, sir.
In that little black section, which is adjacent to my house, there on Maplewood, on the corner, that'd be the south west corner. They're doing away with the zoning to change it from where they could put in like apartments. And now it's going to be single family, or is it going to be in the future, like he said, rezoned south of there for multifamily?
So right now, it's currently zoned multifamily.
Right.
They are changing the zoning to single family, a more intense single family than a regular detached single-family home like you have, but it is single-family zoning, so the density of that development is significantly reduced with this zone change if we approve it.
So is the ideal to put in more homes per lot, or are they going to put in duplexes?
They could not put duplexes in with this zoning, I don't believe. Does RS3 allow for duplex?
No.
Well, a twin home,
A twin
which
home.
would be 2 units.
Okay, so twin homes are allowed. But that would be the most intense of this zoning, correct? Is a twin home?
That's right.
So patio homes, which would be single-family homes that don't have the setbacks that less intense single-family zoning like your lot would have,
Right.
but not apartments. Apartments obviously would be a lot more units per acre, a lot more intense development than what they're proposing to change to.
Okay. So I don't have a problem with what I understand now, which this was not all brought up or people could understand it.
Right.
That's number one. Number two, is the homeowners in this all outlying area, Grandview all the way down to Walnut Hill or whatever, including all of this adjacent area and the property backing up to this adjacent area, like Grandview, are all these homeowners going to be notified by letter when they want to go in and rezone something south of there for something else other than single family?
No.
No.
Is the answer. It will likely be no, because the city has is it a 200-foot notification requirement?
It is, but part of his question was if they change it from single family, but again, it's not single family currently, it's zoned for apartments.
Okay.
No,
They
he's
have
talking
every
about the
right-
land to the south of this
Right, but
area.
you can see on that, well, you're talking outside of the orange? On that map in the right, everything in orange could have apartments, and they have every right to build that today without any notifications.
Right. So they're only changing the variance for the subject property.
Correct, so everything south
So-
and west of that, east, could all be developed with apartments tomorrow without any approvals, because it's already
And to
been
answer your
approved.
question about notification, I believe the city's requirement is within 200 feet of the lot, of the tract that's in question. Would you go back a couple of slides, Raphael?
You're correct, Commissioner Stribling, and that is state law as well.
Right,
200
so
feet.
let's go back, but I think it's important that we make this clarification here, because this is one of those things, that zoning like this, I think impacts a much greater area than the notification area that the city's required to provide. So it's on residents like you that are active and paying attention to maybe help notify the other folks in your neighborhood that would share your opinion if you don't want multifamily development in this area. So the notification is within 200 feet of the property boundaries. And you see the red line?
Yes.
That's how they establish the notification area. So just imagine if they went a little bit south there, the residents on the northern end of that area probably will not be notified.
One thing that staff does do, though, is we will post a sign in a visible place, usually along that major corridor, Collector Road, so that when you're coming
And
up.
everybody in their day-to-day life sees it, doesn't pay attention.
That's right.
The sheep will just conform and walk the line. Do the talk, walk the line. There again, I guess I will have to do my due diligence to bring up stuff to neighbors. Because
sir.
there again, in my opinion, that north of that area 40, all that Grandview, all of those people should have got letters.
Right.
Because their property actually backyard backs up to this property.
Well, and I believe they did, the
Yeah,
boundary.
most of those did.
Yeah, that red line, you can see where the numbers are in green. Those are all the folks that got notified.
Right.
But the homes, I can't read what the street is that those homes front on, but the other side of that, so the other side of Grandview did not get notified. Just the folks that back up to it. So the southern stretch of Grandview.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
fine.
Trish Jordan, and it's single-member District 1. I live at 27 South Ridge. I'm one of these people that you're talking about that read the signs. I just had a couple of questions about the storm drainage, and I don't know what I don't know about the storm drainage. I'd like a few more questions answered. And I was worried about traffic. We have a traffic problem there anyway. Where will these people get in and get out? Because I know the trains are about to hit us full blast again and cut us off at Valley View. Those questions I would like to have answered.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the question about stormwater,
We do have a drainage problem down further on Valley View around our South Ridge area.
Come up to the mic.
It comes from where you're talking about.
So I guess the Valley View, if you look at kind of Valley View and where it takes a little dip, the southerlymost dip, that's kind of the lowest point of Valley View. So the drainage from this property, for the most part, other than just the little bit of the lots that would ultimately face and front Valley View, most of the drainage from this area kind of sweeps and goes towards the railroad track. So it's heading east, and then it starts to kind of bend around and sweep around going south. And kind of between the designations of 38 and 39, there's a huge structure underneath the railroad tracks there. And there's an old, and I don't know if we can go to the aerial map may help. You can kind of see there to the south along the railroad track, when they built the railroad track up, they borrowed a lot of material there. So there's kind of a created detention pond of sorts there. And so that's kind of what we're looking at. It's been utilized as a detention pond. We're working with the neighbors that own that area about getting to use that as a detention pond for our property. And so for the most part, most of our drainage, probably 90+% of it, does not make it to Valley View for what we're developing. And by this zone change, we're actually, by going to less dense, we're decreasing the impervious surface for the most part, and in such decreasing the stormwater runoff that's contributing to that area. And there again, the same with traffic. Apartment complex, you heard that, 25 units per acre, as opposed to single-family residential that maybe we have 4 or 5 units per acre. So we've significantly reduced the traffic that will be created in that area by this zone change. The developer just kind of said, hey, if it's an issue, we'll pull this, and all we have to do is come back and maybe ask for some variance on some floor area ratios and use it that way, or we'll just dig our detention pond a little bit bigger and we'll go on down the road and leave this opportunity to develop this as multifamily in the future. But really, this is, from what I'm understanding, the concern is this is doing nothing but helping to mitigate what could be there as an RM1 zoning. So happy to answer any other questions from whomever.
Thank you.
Rocky Templin, District 6. Yes, I believe anytime you go from approximately 905 units down to the maximum of 160 units, traffic-wise, it would be a plus. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else wish to speak on this case? I'm going to close. Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
This drainage that he's talking about, Trish Jordan, single member of District 1, 27 South Ridge. This drainage that he's talking about comes right behind where we live. It comes between where the railroad is and then our property. We have a brick wall all the way around the property. So you're going to make adjustments to maybe mitigate that drainage? I mean, can you tell me where?
Southridge, Russell Gully, SKG, Southridge is to the east of this property. And so our property is draining to the east, but if you see kind of Valley View, there's kind of I can see it, two drainage areas, two drainage lines that are taking drainage from Valley View and sending it south to the railroad track. So our drainage never makes it to Southridge. We're kind of almost lower. Yes, sir. Yes, and Southridge is there to the east. So our drainage from our area, for the most part, does not, until we bring a plat that includes Valley View on it, none of our drainage that we're doing and adding to goes to Valley View. It's all going to stay south of Valley View and go south and east, but only east as far as where you had pointed, Travis.
Right.
And from there, it's then going south. So our drainage, that's going back uphill, going towards Southridge. So.
Okay, but there's an odd little, I don't know if it's the property there that had dumped a lot of, between where you are and where we are, they had dumped a lot of caliche back toward the railroad tracks. And when we get rain or heavy rain, it comes between the end of that property.
So are you referring to kind of this area that is?
That just means nothing to
Okay.
me. I'm sorry. We just have some drainage issues. I don't know where the water comes from. I just know we have drainage issues. And,
Well,
you know, it's kind of come under our retaining wall. It's washed out there. But you don't think that's coming from your
No, ma'am.
property?
That is not us.
So where would that be coming from, I wonder?
I'm happy to visit with you after this. We can
Okay.
talk about it.
Okay, because it's between a lift station
Or the
and
city engineer is here.
Okay,
He's
okay.
the expert on it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, very nice. Good morning, sir.
Hi, how are you? My name is Keith Woods. I live at 3101 Grandview, and I did get a letter. I don't like to respond with a letter. I want to come talk to you in person. I want to find out why are the zoning changes taking place, or why are they asking for them? What are they wanting to build now that they can't build on the zoning that they have now?
Right. So
What's
the reason,
the change?
So the reason they came to us, according to Russell, is within the zoning, there are development requirements for a runoff coefficient as it relates to addressing stormwater. So for RM1, he said it was 0.75, and for RS3, it is 0.5. So the cost of addressing the stormwater runoff from a more intense development has discouraged the landowner from pursuing a multifamily apartment complex type development. They would rather look at less intense development, the most intense being twin homes or a duplex of sorts, and patio home type development, because the stormwater runoff requirements for that type of improvement are less than they are for multifamily, because the improvements themselves are not as intense. So they're reducing the intensity of the development within this tract of land
Well, isn't there
for
a
stormwater.
huge low place in that property back there? If you
I'm not
ever go
sure,
back and walk
but-
that, there's a real low spot back there. That property comes right into my driveway.
Okay.
So when I back out, I'm looking at it. Now, my other concern is what can they build behind me? Can they build townhomes? Because I was looking at what R3 means, and R3 looks like you can have townhomes, you can have apartment complexes that are two-story.
They cannot have apartments for RS3.
apartments?
No
That's
apartments.
R3?
That's what
What
the
can be
current.
built in R3? Make that simple for me.
So twin homes,
Now, is
patio
that a
homes.
duplex?
Yeah, I would say it's a duplex of sorts, yes, sir.
But now, you remember back in 2015, we had somebody from the city, I don't know who it was, but anyway, from our district, wanted to do low-income housing back there in 2015, and that brought up a real stink at the
Sure.
time. And they said they were going to put it on the back burner for a while. Now, this ain't a way to move that off the back burner and bring that back to life, and we're gonna end up with a bunch of low-rent housing back behind us.
I would be inclined to think that apartment development would lend itself better to low-income housing than what's being proposed with this less dense development.
But how do we as homeowners have a guarantee? A good share of us out there are retired guys, and this
Yes,
has
sir.
been our last home that we'll probably die in. And I didn't buy in in an area with those, and I don't want them in there now. And my concern is how do we have any assurance that one day we won't be building apartments back there,
So Keith, on that,
or low-income housing?
what you have right
Because that was just
now,
down the road from us when they tried to do that last time. It's called Valley View Outlook, or Outlet Valley View. And you can go read the article on it, and
yeah. So Keith, right now, it is zoned to build apartments on.
yeah, I know that.
So what they're proposing is so the twin homes, you can have townhouses, or you can have patio homes, would be what would be done in the RS3.
But those are all going to be lower-priced homes than what we have now.
Well, not necessarily, not necessarily.
If you look at the patio homes up on Champion Circle, on average, those are in the $350,000 range. The R3 zoning, or RS3 zoning, that's based on what the city is. Once the developer, they'll create their deed restrictions that any other builder that may be building in that area needs to follow. So that typically includes what your minimum square footage of your home can be, exterior, making sure that they're all similar, whether it's rock, brick, stucco. So again, it has a uniform consistency through the.
But if you change the zoning, it would eliminate being able to build apartments?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
100%.
Then I'm all for that part
It
of
reduces the intensity,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's what I want you to know, that this is taking that away.
Yeah.
What they're talking about is here, is they're changing just inside this black, this 37 acres section part here.
Well, how much variance do we have behind our houses then before all this starts? How much land is going to be sitting there vacant? Because the way it looked like to me, you were talking about the land that was between the red and the black lines, and you just went around this way. So you're just talking about the land that's in white?
What we're talking about for this case is the land that's outlined in black on this map
Just this.
above
And
me,
what
this
I-
aerial map.
What I brought up is here and here and here, they're wanting in the future to maybe, and it's already zoned, to add
The apartments.
apartments.
That's what I've been worried about, is that right there.
Yes, sir.
And they're probably gonna go in, and which has not been brought up, they're probably gonna come in from here on Valley View, where you got Walmart over here on Knickerbocker.
Well, they'll bring Valley
And
View
they're
to
gonna
Valley View.
bring this all the way over and use this section right here to connect Valley View. So Valley View will be connected all the way from Southland, all the way over to Knickerbocker.
Knickerbocker.
Well, that would
Yes, sir.
also, would High Point, which runs right beside our master bedroom window, won't that bring High Point right back into that same land area to get access to it? So we're gonna have a lot of traffic, I mean, just right now, just to walk out of my house, out of my garage with my dog and try to get across Grandview at certain times of the day, I have to stand there for quite a while just to try to get through the traffic. So
Yes,
when
sir.
we start putting a lot more stuff back there, Grandview is gonna be, and High Point both, are gonna be a heavy traffic areas. And there's a lot of it in there,
Yes, sir.
a lot. And we talk about stormwater, I can fish from my front yard, when it rains, I can fish off my front porch. I mean, the water will get so deep, I've seen it run in the floorboards of the neighbor's car.
Wow.
It'll get that deep right
The
there.
car was actually moved on Valley View toward the end of Valley View and College Hills. A car parked in front of the house was actually moved 3 car lengths down the road and kicked out sideways out into the road.
From the
As I
floodwater.
went and knocked on the door and I said, I know that's your car and you probably don't know it, but the rainwater, stormwater drainage has put your car in a precarious position out in the middle of the road.
Well, the people that live at the end of Grandview and College Hills, they have to sweep all their landscaping back up and throw it in the yard after a big rain. I mean, it takes the rocks, it takes everything out. That water really gets bad through there.
They've had to put big rocks in on the end of College Hills and Valley View, right there where all this water comes down, and it's bar ditch, or curb to curb and over the curbs on Grandview and Stone Canyon Trail. I actually driving to my house and not going very fast during a recent rainfall, bent my front license plate up in a position like this, where it should have been this way. And that was just from driving, and it was curved this high, and you had water this high. You could have got your jet ski pulled behind somebody on a wakeboard and had a really good time there. And it's...
I'm sorry that you guys are having to deal with the runoff in that part of the city. I would strongly encourage that you voice your concerns to the engineers and the city staff so that as development continues, they properly address any further stormwater runoff that could impact that area.
Two, if you will, miniature ponds on Stone Canyon Trail, one at Maplewood, one down at Valley View, not as bad, but one south of me at the next block, which I can look up and see what the name of it is, but one street south of me from Maplewood, whatever that street is always, I got a huge pond, so you wash your vehicle, it rains, and you're good, so now it's time to go wash your vehicle again because it's quit raining for 4 or 5 days, but you still got your pond to deal with.
Right.
So now you got to head out a different part of the section so you don't have to drive through the pond to get your newly washed vehicle dirty.
Yes, sir.
So
I understand.
There's lots of issues when there's talking about this stormwater drainage.
I understand your concerns.
Even in the past, and then you're going to have more complications in the future with all this other, including the apartments that's already zoned for south of here and east of here.
How many acres is back there? Do anybody know from the railroad up to Grandview? Do you have anybody have any idea what that consists of?
I do not. I know that we're looking at this swath right here is 20 acres, this tract of land.
So all these little different tracts are all being zoned differently, or can be zoned differently?
They're all zoned multifamily right now.
But everything that we've reviewed this morning and approved is single family. And this obviously being the most intense.
What are they referring to when they say low rise? What are they talking about? Just a regular standard home?
Low rise multi, is that what you're asking? That's
what is the term low rise when you?
Two-story.
Yeah, it's 2-story or less.
Okay, 2-story or less. Okay.
1 to 2, yes, sir.
Okay.
And that's what we're changing the zoning from. That's what's proposed for this case, is to reduce from 2-story multifamily to single family that may allow.
Because if you did a 2-story right behind us, we wouldn't even have a backyard privacy of any kind. You know, that would be all gone.
Right.
That zone area in the black that they're talking about right now is way over from.
Yeah. But my concern too, though, was that. My concern is the apartment complexes in the future. If
yes, sir.
Not that they're starting to build back there, or going to start building back there at some point in time. Do we have any assurance of any of that not going to happen?
No, sir.
So that can be requested at any time.
You would have to talk to the property owners about that.
And how about commercial? Can any commercial be put back there?
Not currently. It's not zoned currently to allow it.
Can it be zoned to do that?
Potentially, yes, but it is not currently zoned for that.
Okay. And then how about just like nursing facilities or nursing homes like
that would be
under
under commercial and would not be allowed presently.
Okay. And then I think one of the fellows over here said something about you didn't have to notify the homeowners on certain things that come up.
Yeah, if you're outside of the 200-foot notification area, we don't have to notify. We would put a sign up, and there's other ways to notify, but yes, if you're, say, 500 feet away from that zone change, you wouldn't get notification. There again, besides the sign, there are other ways that we also notify, though, but we're not required to.
Well, tell me the positive things about rezoning it. Make me feel better about that.
In this case, with this tract of land, it is a reduction in the density of the development.
Okay.
Which I think you
would
would
want anything 2-story.
Fewer units.
Yeah, fewer units, less people.
Okay,
an
but
apartment-
they can do like the duplex type home?
Yes, but not apartments.
Right.
And
Not what?
apartments, according to the city, could be developed up to 25 units per acre, which is a lot. And this, would you say, Russell, 4 or 5? 4 or 5 units per acre, so a substantial reduction
Okay.
in the density of the development.
Well, when they build back there, are they not going to be required to bring Valley View over to Valley View and hook the two up?
Yes,
some point,
I believe
yes.
so.
So what they'll do right now, we're just changing the zoning on this. And then as they get ready to develop it, then they'll come back in with their plats and it'll show
Will the city
streets
at
and
that time
everything
take
else on
into
there.
consideration the traffic situation? Because if you could bring Valley View to Valley View, that would help Grandview a lot.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Because
And
right
that-
now, Grandview is just the freeway from Valley View on over.
it is.
And we catch all that traffic. And if they would be forced to do that, then that would help a whole lot on any new housing that you had back there to help us a lot with
Yes, sir.
traffic. So, but the main thing is, they're not talking about two-story and they're not talking about apartments for right now.
They're not talking
Zoning
about
change.
apartments for right now.
Okay.
And a reduction in the density of the development.
And if
is
they did do the
proposed.
apartments, they would be back farther towards the railroad?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Is still.
It's south of Valley View, yeah.
Pardon? Yeah, so south of Valley View, where Travis is pointing, that currently is still zoned that it could
Well,
have
that's the part
apartments
that's
on.
still got brush on it, right?
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's the only part that would be in the apartment part of it?
Potentially. It's zoned to allow for apartments, but
That's the current
That could
zoning on it,
change.
Keith. And then also that other just east of there, that's also, right now, it's multifamily.
Well, the property
On
right
Valley
behind my
View.
house, Terry, is,
Yes, sir.
is that, any of that housing area can have apartments zoned?
No.
To put apartments in that,
No.
right
No.
directly behind
That's,
us?
that's what we're changing.
That's what we're
So-
changing.
That is
So-
where you're changing.
Yes, sir.
So right now, that's what you have as far as the map and everything. On the right side where that orange is, that is low-rise multifamily. So that would be two-story apartments everywhere. And then what we're talking about doing is changing it so it's going to be just the smaller homes. So it'll be the RS3 with, so that'll be, I think you'll like that better.
Terry, wouldn't that be
Yes,
about
sir.
the same thing that they did before, though? Wasn't that where they were talking about putting the low-income housing, is down in that same area?
I thought it was
I think it
further
was-
over.
I
Said
thought it was-
2900 Valley View.
Okay, I thought it was to the, well, if you're looking at that map, to the east.
I believe
Where
it
Valley
was.
View was still, it was all Valley View, not behind you.
Okay, but wouldn't it be down in that area where the brush is still at?
Yes. And that's
Okay.
still going to be right now. That's still saying that it's, could be low-rise multifamily. They're not
Okay, but
changing
that's-
that.
That's the same location they were talking about doing the low-income housing back in 2015, and that's what I'm worried
Correct.
about. Is that just another way to bring low-income housing into that area?
I don't,
no, they're just separate. They're-
Yeah,
they're-
it's gonna be
they're mutually
separate.
exclusive.
yeah.
But will we ever know anything about it? Or will
Yes.
this be something that happens and,
No, there will be notice. They will put signs up on that land if they're changing the zoning. Well, it's zoned for multifamily, so if it's low income, they're gonna probably have to get
They'll do the town
city
hall
council
meetings, I would think,
approval and
like
town
they-
hall
as they did
meetings. So
before.
They'll have to go through quite a bit.
I think what the city should have done was bought that whole chunk of land behind my house and turned that into a beautiful park.
Right. And
We
address the
wouldn't have
drainage
this
issues.
problem right now.
Yes.
We got all those deer back there, we got all kind of wildlife, we need walking trails. If you guys would have did that, you'd have had a beautiful park back there. Forget all this housing stuff.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. Appreciate your time. All right, anyone else wish to speak on this case? All right, I'm going to close public comment and take a motion or any other comments.
I would like to make a motion to approve it as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. Conditional uses, the Planning Commission has final authority. For approval of conditional uses, appeals may be directed to the City Council. CU 21-16, 3017 Southwest Boulevard. A request for approval of a conditional use to allow alcohol sales in the General Commercial Zoning District to satisfy TABC requirements for the sale of wine-based to-go daiquiris, being .209 acres located at 3017 Southwest Boulevard.
Rafael Alvarado, planner. This is conditional use 21-16 at 3017 Southwest Boulevard. Subject property is 0.209 acres. It is within District 6, Larry Miller, in the Sunset neighborhood. To the left is a satellite image of the property. Here you have the future land use and the zoning districts. And this property did undergo a zone change from CN to CG. I believe it is, the conditional use is subject to approval of the zone change at tomorrow's city council meeting. If you remember, this was accepted This is the notification map. There have been 0 in support, 0 in opposition. 12 notices were mailed out. This is the property, front view, and the rear view. The use requested for the property is in conjunction with the zoning ordinance, and the conditional use is to satisfy TABC requirements and also to satisfy city requirements for on-premise consumption of alcohol in CG-zoned areas. The development pattern of the area is consistent with the existing commercial. Staff recommends approval of CU 21-16 for a conditional use of alcoholic beverage sales for on-premises consumption in a CG zone district. Are there any questions for staff?
Any questions? All right.
Didn't we hear this already, or was there?
That's right. Prior to the conditional approval, we had to undergo a zone change.
Okay, thank you.
And just to add a little more, this is similar to like an Eskimo hut. So they are sealed beverages, wine and beer-based beverages. However, I guess TABC has taken a more strict approach to those. Therefore, they consider them on-premise. And so this is a request to satisfy TABC's concerns and fit within the zoning ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
The applicant is here, if you would.
All right, we're going to open it up for public comment.
I'm Taylor Jenkins with Soto Management, the applicant, and it's just like he said, it's like an Eskimo hut. We just have to satisfy TABC, and we don't allow consumption on the premises, so as a company policy. So,
Okay.
yes, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this case? I'm going to close public comment. Anyone wish to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? 7-0. Planning projects. Presentation of historic resources, survey of downtown San Angelo, prepared through a grant from the Texas Historic Commission.
Thank you. John James, Director of Planning and Development Services. This is the area in red. The city got a grant. Council approved us to apply for a grant from the Texas Historic Commission to do a historic resources survey of the area you see there in red. That was accomplished by a consultant. Just a little information there on the screen of the consulting firm that we hired. They spent about a year going through the downtown, taking pictures. What you didn't get in your packet, you got a copy of the final report, except there was an Appendix B, which was about 400 pages. It had 1 page on each property in the downtown, a picture, a historic description of the property. So that's available in our office. It was just too big to include in your packet. As I mentioned, it was with a grant. This is just for information only. It's again, it's a report from the consultant. There's no action from you all today. It doesn't change zoning. It's not creating a historic district, anything like that. However, one of the recommendations from the consultant was if the city is going to create a historic district in the downtown, here are the areas that we would recommend as the consultant to look at doing that. We've been talking with downtown San Angelo. They are interested in the city pursuing a historic district in the downtown, and so that's sort of what is driving some of this. And so, again, I won't read through all of this. As I mentioned, the team did surveys, identified 390 different buildings in the downtown that they reviewed. When I get to the map in a second, they basically, for each building, they designated it as high priority, which means it's qualified to be on the National Register of Historic Places, or medium priority, which means it's historic, but not necessarily qualified for the National Register, but would qualify to be locally zoned historic. And then low priority are those that aren't historic at all, but are in the area that was surveyed. As they note there, all evaluations were made by professionals that are meet the standards of the Secretary of Interior. That is the federal department that establishes guidelines for historic preservation. So here's the map. I know that's kind of hard to read. You can kind of look at it in your packet to get more information, but you can see the little red dots, the bright red dots are those that are high priority historic resources. The kind of orange or kind of on there, it kind of looks almost peach. That are the medium priority, and then the yellow ones are those buildings that are not historic within these areas. And then you can see some of the different colored boundaries. Basically, the blue area is the area they think is the most important for historic resources. And then they have a couple of the green is a kind of a residential area of historic buildings. And then the crosshatch just north of the green, that's kind of the commercial area they would call a little lower priority, but could be included in a historic district. And so their initial recommendation for what they would recommend we start off with the historic district is the hatched, I guess it's kind of not the cross-hatched, but the just single hatch, basically going from the south end, which is Neff's Way, just south of Concho, basically one block on either side of Chadburn, all the way up to, I guess that's about College, and then it narrows down to basically just the properties along Chadburn up to, that's probably 4th Street, 4th Street. So kind of the smallest boundary that you can picture there, and I can't point directly to it, but just kind of this area along Chadburn up to that point right there. That would be the area they would recommend. And so we're going to take this information and we'll be coming back to you all. We'll first go to the Design and Historic Review Commission, but we'll be coming back with some type of recommendation for a historic district in the downtown. That's a little bit different from, we just went through the process to expand the downtown district area, and that's where we have design review, but that's a more minimal design review. A historic district would basically set the bar a little higher for what that design review would be for those historic buildings within that area. So again, that's a brief overview. I'd be happy to answer any questions. With that, again, we'll be coming back at some point in the future. If we are to adopt a historic district, it'll have to go through the DHRC, through you all, and through City Council, as well as probably having a town hall meeting to have the public come in and hear about it.
So on that new area that we just did, the River Corridor, or whatever it's called now, there was discussion at that time that we wouldn't be changing or what I remember, historic, or there wouldn't be extra things that those properties needed to do or be done to them. Are you saying now that there would be?
Well, if this ever got adopted, then yes, it would have a higher bar for historic preservation, but just in this much smaller area. And as it goes through the process, it could be expanded or shrunk based on the direction we get.
So you're saying only on South Chadburn, south to North Chadburn?
Yes, so one block on either side of Chadburn just through this strip. So just that blue crosshatched up to about there.
Okay.
Again, that's their recommendation. It'll have to go through a 2 or 3 month process at least to actually get adopted.
Is it only the red buildings?
No, a historic district applies to all of the property within there. But similar to the downtown district, the review standard is different. If you're a historic building, then you have to meet a higher standard. If you're a non-historic building but in a historic district, you just have to be compatible. So you'd look, you
So
couldn't.
would this report identify or designate which buildings would be historic?
Yes, so the ones designated high and medium would be considered historic.
Right.
The yellow ones, for example, the Tom's Tire or the Firestone Tire across the street, those aren't really historic buildings, but being within the area, if they made changes to the buildings, they wouldn't, it doesn't mean they would have to make them look historic. They just couldn't do things that would be contrary to the historic character of the area.
So it would be limiting.
It would be more limiting, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
But there are, I'd just point out, there are some benefits on the other side in terms of grants and getting designations from the State Historic Commission or the National Register of Historic Places can bring benefits to properties that are within those areas as well as the increased standards.
And there's a lot of historical homes, for instance, that don't want that designation because they wouldn't be able to make outside changes. So this, though, if it were or move forward and approves, then it doesn't matter what you want. If you own a property there, you're going to be made to do whatever.
Well, yes. Now, you did say they don't want to do it because they wouldn't be able to make exterior changes. They actually can make exterior changes. It just has to be in keeping with the historic character of the building.
Right. No, but there are homes that don't have the registry. They're not on the registry.
Correct.
Because they don't want to be restricted.
That's right.
But
And if they were in the district, they would. Now, most of the area we're talking about almost exclusively is commercial. So any of the residential areas we're talking about, we're not proposing to make those a historic district. But that was one of the consultant's recommendations.
But all of the commercial could be. Okay.
Could be, if adopted. Again, today we're just talking about the report from the consultant and their recommendations. Anything that gets approved would have to go through a long process before it would apply, and all of the properties would get notified and all of that.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, John. Director's report.
I'll just stay right here for that. I don't really have anything to add. You may recall at the special meeting, we talked about the sidewalk ordinance. We're still working on those changes and getting those to the folks for review and some back and forth. We're hoping to be able to do that by your December meeting and have something we can bring back to you all as kind of a joint recommendation.
Okay. Now, future meeting agenda and announcements. The next regular meeting of the Planning Commission is scheduled to begin at 9 a.m. on Monday, December 13th, 2021. Adjournment. Anyone wish to make a motion?
Make a motion. Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. 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 Opposed? 7-0. It's 11:38.